The following is an encore presentation of stories from the Dooralong Transformation Centre. 11 minutes past 10 o'clock on the 18th of January. We're joined in the studio by Ashley. Very good morning to you, Ashley.
Good morning.
Ashley is here from Dooralong. What's the weather like? I mean, I'm complaining about how hot it is here. It would be, I'm guessing, warmer there, would it be?
Yeah, well, I got up at 5:30 this morning and walked out, and the wind, it was unbelievably hot.
Yeah.
It's been quite a stinker out there.
Yeah, I can imagine, because you're in a sort of little bit of a heat sink there, I think.
Yeah, there's no like sea breeze or anything like that there.
No, but the cabins are air conditioned?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, and you've got the pool, but I'm guessing the pool is just warm water, I think.
Yeah, it is. Plus, you've got 150 people there, so you'd be very lucky to get out there.
Yeah. So, look, you're in the air-conditioned comfort of our studios here, so we'll make the most of it. How long have you been at Dooralong, Ashley?
I'm going on to 9 months.
Oh, that's quite some time, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. And you're very young. I hope you don't mind me saying that. But you've had, what should we say, a challenging journey, haven't you?
I have.
I have. So, tell us about your childhood and growing up. It wasn't on the Central Coast?
No, it wasn't. I grew up in Windsor, down Sydney way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up in a Department of Housing house with my father, my mum and my 3 brothers.
Yeah.
My mum and dad were alcoholics. My dad was very, very violent. I don't really remember much because of all the trauma.
Yeah.
But I do remember I used to cry. I used to be so isolated in my bedroom because we were pretty much not allowed to do what we wanted to do. And I used to cry myself to sleep a lot of the time.
So your dad was physically violent to your mum?
He was very physically and emotionally.
Yeah.
He'd call her names and knock her around and made her feel very insecure about herself.
And that has a terrible impact on the children. I think at one time they used to think that as long as the children didn't see it happening, it didn't have an impact on them, but it would have a huge impact on you, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, well I didn't get to see a lot of it, but even just hearing it was quite scary.
Yeah. So I'm guessing it wasn't a very happy childhood.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah. What about school life?
Well, because of my isolation and not being able to play with the kids in the neighbourhood, I did find myself not connecting with the children at school.
Quite lonely?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got bullied a fair bit.
So life consisted of going to school, which wasn't great. There was bullying and you hadn't made a lot of good friends. And home life was dad being violent, mum and dad being alcoholics.
Yeah.
That would be hard.
Very hard.
Very hard, yeah. So how long did that go on for?
Pretty much up until I was about age 12.
Yeah.
And mum and dad got a divorce, and I found out my dad was actually not my real dad at that time. So me and my older brother were taken with my mum, and my 2 younger brothers were left there with my father.
Yeah. So it's now just you, your brothers and your mum.
Yeah. So
did things improve?
No, not really. My mum continued to drink, and I think because she was so used to being abused, she actually took it out on me and my older brother. And she had a serious issue of bipolar, so she was a chronic self-harmer.
So she had her own mental health demons.
She did.
Yeah. Being an alcoholic and having bipolar, not a good combination.
No, it wasn't.
Not a good combination for you. So life hasn't improved, although dad's gone, so there isn't violence, but life's not really improving for you, is it?
No, it didn't.
Yeah. Now look, I should at this point mention that we will be talking shortly about sort of themes that, if you've got any tiny ones there, little toddlers, you may not want them to hear what we're talking about, so if you can find something else for them to do, give them an activity, that would be good. So, how old are you now, Ashley, at this stage? Mum and dad have divorced. You're back with mum, living there. How old are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was about 12.
12, yeah. And it was at that age that you got introduced to drugs?
No. My mum was put into a mental institution because she kept self-harming, and I was actually placed with my grandma and my older brother, and some issues happened there with my older brother, and I ended up moving back with my mum when she got a house, and
Yeah.
that's when I was introduced to drugs at the age of 14.
Nobody offered you counselling or anything like that? Because, you know, you've had so much trauma in your life with your dad being physically violent to your mum, them both being alcoholics, your mum having a mental health condition and in and out of hospital and self-harming. Did nobody offer you counselling?
No, well, I remember telling the school principal once that my dad was abusing us at home, and docs tried to get involved, and it was the worst thing I could have ever done. So I think it was just that fear of what could happen to my parents, because I had that loyalty in my parents.
So you felt responsible for them in some way?
I did, yeah. I became my mum's full-time supervisor. I had to leave school just so she wasn't self-harming when I was away.
At the age of?
13, 14.
Tough. Yeah. So what led you to start taking the drugs?
I guess it was because my mum was smoking at the time. I was smoking cigarettes, and she actually needed a cigarette to mix with her pot. And she's like, oh, you might as well have one of these. And when I smoked my first cone, I had that connection with my mum. She actually wanted to spend time with me, and it was the only really time she showed me attention.
Okay. So it was like you were bonding with your mum, but not in a good way. Well, bonding in a good way, but over drugs, which is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that encouraged you then, I guess. If mum shows you attention and it feels good that mum's sort of showing you attention, then you just do it again.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I was smoking on a daily basis with her, and then before you know it, I became really addicted and couldn't live without it.
Yeah. Are you still going to school?
No.
Yeah.
No,
so
I'm
just
old.
at home, full-time carer for your mum?
Yes, that's right. I actually had a chance to be expelled or sign out of school because of the issues that were going on at home. I had anger problems at school, and the school just didn't want me there no more.
Again, nowadays, we would hope that the schools would see those anger issues as a symptom of something really bad happening in your life and sort of come to your aid with counselling, but clearly at that stage, in that time, nobody bothered.
No, that's right. And it was more that I had to be there for my mum, so she just couldn't be left on her own.
Still loved your mum?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did this continue? There you are, you're taking drugs. I mean, you're 14, your mum hasn't got a regular job. Do you mind me asking, where did you get the money to get these drugs?
Well, that's where it all started. I met a boy in the area who actually was selling the drugs at the time, and he was interested in me and would come around and shout me and my mum when we didn't have it. So I formed that bond with him, and I knew that he had the pot all the time, so I couldn't take it no more at home, and I ended up getting in a relationship with this guy and leaving home and moving in with him and his family.
And how did that turn out? Because you're leaving a really bad situation. Was this a better situation?
No. No, it got very, very violent. There was a lot of crime and that involved, a lot of domestic violence.
Yeah. And the drug taking continued?
It did.
Escalated?
It actually numbed me from what was going on around me and sort of allowed it to happen. I suppose I didn't really focus on what was going on as long as I had that drug there.
Yeah. We'll break for some music shortly, but one question that occurs to me before we do is, was there anybody that you could have reached out to help from? Was help ever offered, or did you feel that at any stage I must get myself some help? No,
well, that's exactly how I ended up coming to Dooralong, because years and years I didn't know who to go to, and when I did go to someone, it only ever involved more drug taking.
So, but going back to that stage when you were living with this boy, your partner, you knew at that stage that you needed help, did you?
Yes, I did.
You knew that this was not a good life.
Oh, I did know I needed help, but I was young and stubborn, and like I said, addicted to drugs. So I didn't really care. But yes, I had no one to go to. If I went back to my mum, then I would just have to be her full-time supervisor again, and I couldn't handle watching what she was doing to herself.
So from your point of view, it's a hopeless situation. You're just
Yeah.
living day to day.
It was.
Just to get through that next day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to leave you there in that hopeless situation, but we're going to do that for the next 3 or 4 minutes. And we're back talking with Ashley this morning. Ashley, we're one of our guests from Dooralong Transformation Centre. The point at which we left Ashley was not a good place. A really troubled, unhappy childhood, and it's turning into a really troubled and unhappy adulthood as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Drugs, violence. Yeah. So how long were you in that violence, drug-ridden sort of situation for?
I was with this guy for 4 years, which at the time, 17, I fell pregnant with my first child. It didn't take me until my son was 4 months old to actually leave that relationship, which I moved back in with my mum and found out I was actually indeed 3 months pregnant again with another child. I couldn't handle this, and at the time there was a guy living at my mum's. He also had heaps of pot on him, and I was still badly addicted to it. And he looked after me. He told me he won't let this guy come and hurt me, and I thought he cared about me, loved me, and he was really good with my son. So I ended up creating a relationship with him, and things just got worse from there. I was not allowed to drink alcohol or anything like that in this first relationship, and this guy was an alcoholic. So I, as expected at age 18, when we're legal and we're allowed to drink, I just went for it. I had that freedom to do what I wanted.
Yeah. And your life for the next how many years was just more of the same?
For about another 4 years.
And then what happened?
And then I ended up getting off the drugs, and I was taking my children to school.
How did you get off the drugs?
Well, I lost my 2 elder children to docs, and the only way I could get them back, I knew I had to give up the drink and drugs.
Yeah.
And
so that was the motivation.
It was.
Yeah.
Definitely was.
Yeah.
And then when I lost them, I gave up for about a year and a half, and I got restoration of them.
Yeah.
And then, like, I had a house, we had the whole family going, things were great. But my partner continued to go out drinking every weekend. He was out seeing other women, and I felt yuck for him to be going out seeing other women. I just felt obviously I wasn't good enough. And I was struggling with my 3 children at home. I was working myself at the time, coming home and he'd be stoned, not working. We couldn't afford the rent and that. So I was just like, enough's enough. I cannot do this no more. And I picked my children up and I took them to my mum's. It's the only place I could go.
Yeah.
And I ended it, but he would not leave me alone. He followed me to my mum's and said, we're meant to be, I'm not leaving you until you realise this.
I suppose we'd call that stalking, would we? Just not leaving you alone, following you.
And then that's when I got introduced to speed from my mum. She was on speed really bad, but she said she could get it, but I have to do it her way, which was injecting. And like, I was really scared of the use of using needles, but being my mum, I thought I was safe and she wouldn't let anything bad happen to me, and I let her inject me with speed. And from that very first time, like, I was able to tolerate that partner that was not leaving me alone. I actually came to love him again. I think it was just that feeling, that numbness of that drug, and everything was rainbows and lollipops at the time, being on that drug. So.
But it didn't last.
No, it didn't. It was only that first time, and after that.
Nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, well, we now know you're at Dooralong. How did you find yourself at Dooralong? I mean, it's a long way from where you've just described, living a life where you're sort of addicted now, not just to pot, but to speed and sort of all the rest of it. Having it in an abusive relationship. It's a long distance from there to Dooralong. What happened?
Well, a few years later, my mum ended up passing away. And I couldn't handle it. I was actually in a third abusive relationship, and I had lost my children again to the care of docs. And I knew that if I went into a detox in Sydney, there's no way I would have walked out clean. Just them people I knew, the places I'd been. So I thought of looking for a detox up the coast or down the coast, as far away as possible.
So that the old sort of faces and sort of, in inverted commas, friends wouldn't be there when you came out.
No, that's right. And before I actually went to a detox, I had moved back in with my first partner that I had my 2 children with, and he started to become very obsessive. We were smoking a lot of ice. Very obsessive and controlling of me. And I just couldn't handle it anymore. I was spending all my money just to make sure that he had his drugs to keep him happy, because otherwise he would be going off all the time and cranky and slamming things around and threatening to hurt people and that.
It's a really bleak life, isn't it? There's no fun, there's no pleasure in this life, is there?
No, there's not.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
So you were phoning around up and down the coast looking for somebody that would take you on a detox program?
Yeah, and I found Wyong Hospital. They had a detox, and the lady said, we'll give you a call back in 3 days if we have anything. And I just expressed to her, I don't think I have 3 days left in me. And she said, I will call you back as soon as possible. And the next day she called me back and she said, can you come in the next couple of days? Which I just packed as much. I didn't even know what to pack, just some clothes and that. And I got on the train and travelled to Wyong station.
Yeah.
To where I took myself to the detox and spent 4 days in there. And while I was in there, I met somebody who'd already done the Dooralong program, and he was explaining it to me, and I rang around a few other rehabs, but they were all full or needed heaps of money to get in, which I did not have at the time.
And you'd never heard of Dooralong?
No, I hadn't. It's actually a miracle that I got in there.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, and so I ended up ringing it up, and they rang me back 2 days later and said, can you be ready for the bus on a Tuesday? This was a Friday. I rang, and it was like God was with me from that point on.
Yeah, and probably guiding you to that point in the first place.
Oh, that's what I believe now.
Yeah. So you arrive at Dooralong. What did you make of it? What was first impression?
To be honest, at first it was really hard for me because I was forcing myself to be there, but I knew deep down that this place was going to be the place to fix me. I used to always say I wish I could go to a place where they could get in my head and rewire it and fix it. I tried to fight the whole God concept.
Yeah.
And it made me really angry. I felt like...
You didn't know it had you didn't know it was a Christian-based sort of...
Not at the time, no, because I was heavily medicated at detox.
And you were resistant then?
I was getting to the point where I was starting to think they were a cult. And I really couldn't handle it, but I knew for my kids' sake and my own sanity, I had to hold in there. I had to do what I had to do to get through. So
it wasn't all sweetness and light as soon as you walked through the front gates of Dooralong, was it?
It was definitely a relief.
It was a relief, but you were still thinking, something weird's going on here.
It was.
Yeah. But you persevered?
I did, and it actually took me a while. I'm really thankful that I had a really good roomie who I moved in with, and she made me feel comfortable straight away. And she just encouraged me after a while, give God a go. What have you got to lose? And I sat there thinking, I really don't have anything to lose. I've lost everything, my own sanity. And I had seen others graduating and how much it changed their lives. So I knew that I needed to put my hands up and surrender.
So at that point, you stopped resisting the God side of things.
I did.
And sort of said, I'll give this a go. I'll be open to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're gonna have another track of music now. Then we'll come back and we'll pick up with Ashley's story again. We'll see how that relationship with God has worked out, and see what the next chapter of Ashley's life might hold for her. We've got, this is really appropriate, isn't it? It's the Newsboys with In the Hands of God. I think that's where we're leaving Ashley. We're back talking to Ashley from Dooralong, and we left her at that part of her story where she is at Dooralong. She had been a little bit resistant to the God side of things for the first couple of months, but that resistance has been worn down, and now she's embraced the idea of God with an open mind. And how are things between you and God now, Ashley?
It's really good. I do not feel alone anymore. I have freedom, and it is wonderful. It's the best feeling I've ever had in my life.
And forgiveness, the slate has been wiped clean?
Yeah. Well, I haven't been shown much love in that by my parents, but I feel that love from God, and I go to Him every time I need, just to talk about anything, or I need that comfort.
Yeah. And you go out to one of the local churches, I think?
I do. I attend Long Jetty Church every Sunday.
Yeah, and you enjoy that?
I love it.
Yeah.
The people are amazing out there and so accepting.
Yeah. So when you were growing up, your attitude or understanding of the church would have been rather different, I guess.
It was. I always believed in God, because I used to talk to Him when I was a little child. But I lost that connection when things just got too chaotic in my life. I was like, if God was real, why would He be allowing this to happen to me? I went to church when I was a lot younger, but not over the years.
And not in the way that you
No.
go to church now.
Yeah.
So you've been at Dooralong for 9 months. Do you mind if I ask how things? I know you've got a young family, and you are very honest, and you told us that docs had intervened and taken them off you. How are things with your kids now?
They could never be better. I'm definitely starting to build that relationship with them, and I can see that they're appreciating what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It is very hard being away from them, but I know that after this 10 months of being at Dooralong, that I'm just going to be the amazing mum that I always wanted to be to them children.
And they're still young enough where they need a mum in their life. Well, we all need mums, but how old are they?
My son is 8, and then I've got 2 daughters who are 7 and 6.
Yeah, the loves of your life.
They are, definitely.
Yeah. So that's one of your hopes for the future, to sort of have more contact with your children. What about yourself? What do you want to do with the rest of your life?
Well, at the moment I'm doing my Certificate 2 in Community Services, which after that I would love to do my diploma. I guess I just want to be able to help other young people who may be experiencing similar situations I've been in, or are experiencing difficult stuff at home, maybe parents that are experiencing difficult times with their children. I just want to be able to assist and show them that there is a lot more out there and there is hope.
Do you think that if somebody like that had sort of come and spoken to you when you were 14 or 15, that it would have had an impact, it would have made a difference in your life if somebody had come alongside and supported you and guided you and counselled you?
I think at that age, because you have that teenage attitude, you think you know best. Not really, but knowing I had that support there, yes, I would have known that I wouldn't have had to suffer for so long in the situations I had been in. I could have went somewhere and got that support. Yeah,
and just to know that there was somebody else that cared.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it did seem, it struck me as you were telling the story of your early life, that the one thing missing was some sort of outside help, somebody coming alongside you and sort of journeying with you and offering you help and support. You were totally on your own.
Well, that's right. I felt so lonely, and I didn't know where to go, or I just felt like, I was on my own. I had to do it all on my own.
Yeah, very lonely.
Yeah.
Unhappy place to be.
I was just surviving.
And now you're living.
I'm living, I definitely am.
Living for the future, yeah. And it's chapel night tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love chapel night.
Yeah. They used to put on a roast dinner during the winter on chapel night. They're not going to do that tonight, are they?
Yeah, no, they still do it every night.
38 degrees.
I only ate the ice cream.
Yeah. That's that would be me as well. So look, if any of the guys are listening in Dooralong, yeah, Ashley's going to be back looking for a roast meal. Yeah, or salad
Or a double
and ice
scoop
cream.
of ice cream.
A double scoop of ice cream. I think you deserve that, Ashley. Look, we want to thank you for joining us here this morning. As always, we pray God's blessing on your life and on that relationship you have with your children, and that as He has steered you to Dooralong, He will steer you away from Dooralong into a better and more fulfilling place.
Yeah, thank you.
You've been listening to an encore presentation of the Dooralong stories, which can be heard live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. and repeated 8 p.m. Sunday and 1 a.m. Wednesday, right here on 94.9 rema.cc.